Well, hello, this is Maria, and welcome to our learning time. So, I'm so excited because we already talked about a classic novel, Moby Dick, written by Herman Melville. So, now we are going to learn about Jane Eyre. Jane Eyre, written by Charlotte Bronte, who was born in Yorkshire, England in 1819. Charlotte Bronte. Charlotte Bronte would use different pen names, kind of to disguise herself as a writer, but we know her as Charlotte Bronte, born in England in 1819, 19th century. So one of her most famous novels is Jane Eyre. I encourage you to read it. There are many different adaptations and also films about Jane Eyre. So she was a simple girl who Jane Eyre. Jane Eyre was a simple, plain girl who was orphaned, sent to school for like 10 years, and they mocked and humiliated her. Her best friend suffers and through an illness, and Jane Eyre really suffers through that as well. Finally, Jane Eyre ends up at Thornfield Hall, where she becomes a governess. What's a governess? A teacher, kind of like a teacher and a caretaker of children. And who is she teaching? She teaches the children of Mr. Rochester, the owner of Thornfield Hall. And you can imagine they kind of like each other, and then eventually they fall in love. But there are many hardships, many trials that they go through. So read the book so you can know what happens. We're going to sing a song so you can remember that Charlotte Bronte was the author, and that Jane Eyre, at least, was a simple girl who falls in love with Mr. Rochester. But please read the book. Charlotte Bronte wrote Jane Eyre in her novel. Jane Eyre was a plain, simple girl who falls in love with Mr. Rochester. Charlotte Bronte wrote about Jane Eyre in her novel. Wrote about Jane Eyre in her novel. One more time. Charlotte Bronte wrote about Jane Eyre in her novel. Jane Eyre was a simple young girl who falls in love with Mr. Rochester. Charlotte Bronte wrote about Jane Eyre in her novel. Wrote about Jane Eyre in her novel. That's it. Very nice. So you ever hear about Jane Eyre? Immediately, Charlotte Bronte wrote Jane Eyre. All right. Well, I see you next time and see what other classic novel we can talk about.